Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar, Expand Your Red Carpet, VIP Cultivation Strategies. This is Ben Grant speaking. I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Custora. My team is responsible for making sure that our clients make best possible use of our technology and our team. A few points about what we're going to be doing here. We host these educational webinars every 2 to 4 weeks or so on topics related to customer centricity in retail. If there are any other topics you'd like us to cover in a future webinar, please let us know in the chat box. We'd love to build one for you. You can also chat me your questions as they occur to you throughout the webinar, and we will get to them at the end. I also want to let you know we're going to be sharing this deck and recording later today or early tomorrow with links to an audio-only podcast version. So if you had to miss this or if you've got to run partway through, we want to make it really easy for you to get it in its entirety later on. Here's what we plan to cover. First, we want to speak in general about customer loyalty. What does it mean? What's the landscape? Why is it so important? Then I want to talk at the tactical level about how a marketing team can create a lot of progress in growing the VIP segment for a retail business and acquiring new members into that segment. Then want to close with some tactics for how you could make an even bigger impact if other functions besides marketing were involved in a cross-team effort to cultivate the VIP segment. And then we will end with some Q&A. A few quick words about Custora in case you are new to us. We're a predictive customer analytics platform whose mission is to help retailers maximize customer lifetime value. We do this with a combination of unique tech and service, where our technology generates highly accurate predictions about customer behavior at the individual customer level. And our success team, that's the team I lead, works with our clients to put that information to all kinds of use in marketing tactics, marketing programs, and for general business insights. Without further ado, let's talk about loyalty. So we believe that cultivating customer loyalty should be considered the silver bullet of all goals for a retail business. There are a number of reasons why. You're probably familiar with many of them. For one, they're worth more in terms of their historical and future spend. They're the source of most of your revenue. We'll talk about that distribution in a minute. In addition to that, these are the ones least prone to churn generally. For a lot of businesses, this will be the least leaky part of the leaky bucket. These are the customers less likely to quit. Also, these folks are the living validation of your brand value proposition. These are the folks where your brand value prop has been most highly realized. They're also a very valuable source of feedback for optimizing customer experience and for product R&D. And of course, these folks tend to be more likely to be passionate brand ambassadors, likely to convert non-customers into customers and likely to convert plain old customers into VIP customers. Let's double click on that point about revenue. It is totally normal for us to see the top 10% of customers at any given retailer supplying at least 50% of the annual revenue. And this is actually quite conservative. I don't know if you know what this number is for your business, but we routinely see this as high as 65, 75, or even 80% of predicted future revenue coming from just the top 10% of customers. So of course it follows logically that if you could acquire more customers like these or encourage lower tier customers to up level to the top 10% like behaviors, it could mean a huge revenue increase for your organization. How big? Let's look at this for a second. Retention plus acquisition and cultivation of lookalike spenders could add disproportionate points of revenue to your annual inflow. For example, if you could get 1% more of your customers to behave more like your top 10%, which is what you see occurring on the left in this diagram, you'd be confident of at least a 5% boost in sales. So that's pretty good multiplicative math. Unfortunately, what's more common for us to see is retailers sort of filling a leaky bucket, struggling through to replace their top customers as they churn out. For most retailers, customers churning and downshifting out of this segment happens much faster than customers flowing in. So we often see this segment actually shrinking. It's quite common for us to see as many as half of these customers drop off year over year, which equates to as much as 25 percentage points of at least partially avoidable revenue loss on an annual basis. In other words, in businesses where this segment is not being very effectively tended to, it is causing an absolutely existential revenue problem for that business. You do want to keep these folks. You probably all know that it's much more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to keep an existing customer. This 4-to-1 ratio that you see on screen is just a rule of thumb for the average customer in the average business. It would be often more stark for a VIP customer. In other words, it might be significantly more expensive to acquire a VIP customer than to keep one. So that difference might even be more exaggerated. So there is no doubt this is a very important group. And given that importance, a bunch of questions are bound to emerge for you or anybody in any retail organization. Retention, right? How do we keep VIPs from quitting our brand? Upshifting, how do we get other customers to behave like them? Acquisition, how do we acquire new ones like these ones? And then learning, how can we learn from these VIPs across our organization to help us achieve the above goals? So the rest of this webinar is going to be about how to do some of those things. So I'm going to start, as I said, with what the marketing team can do. I'm going to do this in the context of a very simplified methodology, the old plan, do, measure. At the end of the day, most strategic formulation and execution processes do boil down just to this. One difference that we like to think is true between Custora and other marketing platforms is that most marketing platforms focus maybe even entirely in the do, where the way that we like to work with our clients is across all three of these things. We think that it's in the planning and the measurement and the adjustments that you make based on the measurement that you can actually achieve a breakthrough strategy. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how to lay the groundwork for successful VIP cultivation in the planning stage. One aspect of this is what we call diagnosis. It is worth spending some time double clicking on your revenue trends to understand what is happening in your VIP segment. So this visual that you see on screen right now, we call it a causal tree. This causal tree is an example of a view that you can get in Custora, in the Custora app. So let's imagine that this tree is describing your VIPs or your top 5% of your stack ranked customer base based on predicted future spend. What it's telling us is that, first of all, revenue is down slightly year over year. You may see that 0.2% decrease signaled at the very top. That's easy to measure. So it's flat to slightly down, but what's driving that? It seems like an increase in revenue per customer has unfortunately been offset by a decline in the overall volume of VIPs. That's the red box you see to the left. That's a decline in transacting customers. In other words, you have fewer VIPs year over year than before. That increase in revenue per customer is driven by an increase in frequency. That's the green orders per customer box, which was positive enough to more than make up for a decline in AOV, which was in turn largely driven by a decline in UPT. So this is just one example. This is a perfectly plausible scenario. This is pretty normal for what we see working with our clients, and it's going to be different for you. It's going to be different for anybody, but the point is that one of the very first steps that we would recommend taking is this kind of double click. And from here, we would double click and double click again. But right away, even just from this, you've got some takeaways. In this example, you've got a lot that's going well in your VIP segment, right? You've got that increase in revenue per customer. Each individual customer spend is up thanks to that increase in frequency. The problem is you just need more of them. And right away, that has a ton of implications for your coming year strategy. For example, you would probably want to consider allocating time and money to acquire lookalikes rather than funding initiatives to boost frequency, given that your problem is not in orders per customer, it's in transacting customers. Other teams are likely to take an active interest in understanding and maintaining or growing the value of the VIP segment in addition to marketing. I'm going to say a bit more about this later. The usual suspects are finance and merchandising, and marketing can play a cross-functional leadership role in getting other parts of the business to mobilize around the lifeblood. that is the VIP segment. If you need to influence these people, come back with the statistics. What you're seeing on screen right now is a perfectly realistic example of the difference that exists between different tiers of customer and how much revenue they make up. In this case, platinum is the Custora designation for your top 1% based on highly accurate predicted future spend. And you may have a platinum customer segment where each member's future predicted spend is over $1,100, where spend in the bottom 50% is as low as $26 or $6. As a result of that, of course, you see this top 5%, top 20% making up really nearly all of your future revenue. And if you're ever in a conversation where you need to convince someone to engage in a conversation about why the VIP segment is so important, this kind of view should be very easy to get, and it should be very convincing in any kind of conversation. A few more points about what can be learned about your customers. Another thing that we really like to do at Custora is use AI-powered segmentation to produce a set of distinct behavioral personas. In this case, we see, based on some observable behaviors, a pretty distinct set of differences between a few different personas. This is overly simplified. We would normally have more than 3 personas, but right away we can see how many of each persona segment is, how much of each persona segment is composed of VIPs. You can also see what their product preferences are, what kind of discounts they need, so on and so forth. If you look at your whole customer base in terms of its personas, that'll illuminate where some of your VIPs are sitting in terms of some of their other demographic and behavioral patterns. A couple other ways to learn about what drives VIP behavior. Products is always a popular one. Can we understand which products are of highest value towards our VIP customers, or to our VIP customers? Here's another realistic example. Let's imagine, for simplicity's sake, that you're a sock company and your entire product assortment is different types of socks. What we would do is, for each product category, in this case just different types of socks, we would look at the concentration of VIPs versus non-VIPs as a percentage of purchases in that segment. And it wouldn't be uncommon for us to see something like this, where this leftmost sock is not only the most popular for VIPs, but there's also a big difference between the VIP and the non-VIP concentration, as illustrated by the difference in height between the blue and the green bars, which in this example are the VIP customers versus the non-VIP customers. The implication here is that this leftmost sock category is one that uniquely appeals to a VIP customer, and that has all kinds of implications for how you might market that category and how you might use that category to convert others into VIPs. Another example would be colors. Let's imagine there's a sub-categorization for your socks, and you want to understand which features across sock categories appeal most to VIPs. And in this case, we see the highest blue bars and the biggest difference between the blue and the green occurring in colors blue and black. Again, this is an oversimplified example, but it's not unrealistic. We often see this kind of thing jump off the page when we produce this kind of insight for a client for the first time. Another way to learn from VIPs is qualitative insights. So it may be that in the past you have used surveys or focus groups as a tool to get input from VIPs. One way in which we can help do that is produce the list of people to talk to, whether it's through a survey or a focus group or some other means of communication. Custora can tell you, based on purchase behavior to date, these are the 5% of your customers with the highest likely future spend. And that can be a really good group to talk to ask questions like the ones you see on screen. Why do you love us? What is it about the customer experience that keeps you coming back? What kind of program might you respond well to in the future? And what kind of feedback might you have on our assortment or selection of products? There are a lot of questions that I'm sure you would want to ask these people if you were sure you were talking to the right group. Going back a bit to what I said earlier about getting other teams involved, particularly merchandising or buying and finance teams. These teams are, in our experience, the two generally most likely to get really engaged with this VIP question and VIP strategy. In the case of merchandising, the implications are that if we understand better what types of product characteristics tend to create VIPs and to keep VIPs loyal, then we're going to want to be making and buying a lot more of that kind of product in the future. For the finance team, of course, finance teams are concerned with, for example, the ability to predict future revenue and understand levers to increase both top line and bottom line performance in the business. And VIP customers offer a lot of insight into that. For example, by making up most of the future predicted spend of the entire customer base, they represent, in finance terms, a huge percentage of the future value of the whole business, which is something that any finance team is going to be very interested in understanding better. So what to do with all this knowledge that you've gained by completing all of these previous steps? So goals are essential in planning and strategy. We honestly don't see many retail organizations setting goals in a way that ties well enough to specific tactics that individual teams and individual people can influence. So for example, you probably know your top line revenue target for this financial year, FY 2019, and maybe even for next year at this point in the year. But I would bet that in most cases, you don't know how much of that is going to come from the top 5% of your customer base. And for that portion of it, do you know to what extent your attainment of that goal is going to be a result of growth or declines in important customer economic trends? For example, the number of customers in your VIP segment, their frequency, their order frequency, their UPT, their AOV, and so on. So this stuff we believe is very key to understand because it actually illuminates the path to the goal. So for example, this example is not illustrated on the slide, but just to talk through one quickly, we help our clients often take a top-down goal, something, let's say, the corporate powers that be have mandated, and let's say it's $100 million for next year, and say first, okay, some percentage of that $100 million is going to come from VIPs. Let's say it's 50 million. And we know that our year-over-year trends show a steady decline in AOV, and our approach to promotions isn't going to change, so we can expect that decline to continue at, say, 10% year-over-year. But if we achieve a 6% growth in orders per customer within this segment to offset that decline, we will hit that $50 million component of our $100 million goal. So that's an example of how these sort of in the weeds customer economics trends can tie to a high level goal. And we think that's important because it's at that level in the weeds that actual tactics can be deployed. In this case, in the example I just gave, tactics to boost frequency would be what it would take to hit the VIP segment goal and therefore the entire corporate goal for the entire year. Next up is the do stage. So what follows now is a list of ideas from us for tactics you could use to strengthen your VIP segment or acquire new VIPs. This is not exhaustive, but it's the greatest hits. These are some of the things that we see our clients doing successfully in terms of tactics. One thing that you could do right away is to amplify the welcome series across channels for your VIPs, the top 1% or the top 5% in this example. As a reminder, you may be asking, how do you know a VIP from their first purchase? So as a reminder, the core of what Custora does is predictive analytics and predictive modeling. So we can say with a very high rate of accuracy whether or not someone is in your top 5% as soon as they make their first transaction. So you do have the ability to treat these folks differently from the very get-go. Another idea, create a differentiated shopping experience for VIPs. A number of our clients have had great success doing these things. If applicable in the context of your business, offering personal shopping, either inexpensively or free to improve the shopping experience, but also likely increase UPT and perhaps frequency. Opening up sales in advance is another example that we've seen deployed very successfully. Personal communication along the lines of a handwritten letter, and if applicable, again, valet services are another example of things that we've seen offered uniquely to VIP customers. Another idea, develop offers to incentivize repeat purchases. So of course, you would want to do this for your whole customer file. The reason you might do this for predicted VIPs and not for everyone is that the expected value of an offer like this is higher with the predicted VIP than with anyone else. So if you have pushback in your organization to offer $20 back on your next purchase, it may help to point out that what you're doing here is boosting frequency for a particularly valuable subsegment of the entire customer population, and therefore the future spend, the future value to your business as a result of giving up this $20 now is actually much higher than if you were to offer it to someone who would say, just take the $20, spend that $20, and never come back again. Surprise and delight. Of course, a lot of retail brands are looking at ways to surprise and delight VIP customers. The example that you see on screen is a fun one. What if you were to offer automatic upgraded shipping or a free sample with the first purchase to VIP customers? Again, a reminder that you know who the VIPs are pretty reliably as soon as they make their first purchase with Custora. One cool thing about this, one thing that I love about this is they don't even need to know that it's special for them. It's a personalized on-site experience in this case, but it doesn't need to be called out as something that has been uniquely generated for them. It just becomes part of their experience and part of a very positive experience that makes it more likely that they will become a VIP in the future. Another example, if your data show that joining a credit card program is likely to lead to VIP-like behaviors, and this is something that we see happening more and more, especially if you're tuning in from a bigger brand. I'm sure that you either have a credit card already or you've considered one. If that's the case, then using predictive modeling to target messaging toward people with a high propensity to sign up for a credit card will likely, one, make for very efficient marketing, because you'd have a pretty good conversion rate on that if you've created an audience based on event propensity. And two, if that behavior does indeed lead to VIP-like behavior, you will be increasing the number of transacting customers in your VIP segment. And then you're going to see that kind of multiplicative math that we saw earlier, where a 1% increase in that population gets you a 5% increase to your top line. Those were some marketing tactics. Again, at greatest hits. If you ever want to talk about other things, or if you want to dive deeper into any of those, drop me a line and I'd love to talk to you more about it. The next batch of things are tactics that span outside of marketing. So many of you have omni-channel brands, of course, e-com plus brick and mortar retail. And in those cases, driving repeat purchases through store associates, something that we've seen a lot of success with across a number of our brands. An example of how you could use this is take your top 5%, your VIP segment, whether that is 5,000 or 100,000 customers, and in cases where they live near a physical store, ask associates at that store to give them a call and help them feel special and help them feel welcomed back to make more frequent orders. A quick case study, one of our favorite case studies, Shiseido, a brand we work with, wanted to engage customers who had purchased from a particular product line that was associated with VIP customer behavior. So what we did with them was we identified a subset of their customers who had spent in a way that we thought was applicable and indicative, and we sent that list to a team within their organization to outreach to those people in a very specific way. And this resulted in a pretty quick and immediate boost to the results for the campaign that they were driving for that product line at that time. Another thing you can do in cooperation, going back to my earlier point about working with merchandising teams, it may be that an understanding of where VIPs' tastes and purchase behaviors cluster could result in quite a different set of decisions around the product assortment for the future. And one more that we really love, and in this case, it would probably be working with finance or real estate store teams, is thinking about store locationing. So the slide says planning store openings, but importantly, this would be just as applicable for store closings. And It's our view that any healthy retail business should be both opening and closing stores all the time, on a quarterly or an annual basis as the business and as the customer base evolves. One thing that we can do is first for a brand trying to decide where to open the next location, whether it's a pop-up or a more established flagship type location, is we can say, well, here's a heat map of your likely future VIPs. And in cases where there's a really distinct demographic clustering of VIPs, for example, if a brand's VIPs are really heavily skewed towards undergraduate college age, then it's going to show, first of all, our college towns are going to light up on the map. And then between those, we may see there are some that are particularly bright. And that's one indication that it would be a really good area, a really good geography to open a store. Those are the greatest hits in the do category cross-functionally. Lastly, a few points on measurement. So the ability to really quickly and easily measure progress is completely key here to your ability to understand what's working, what isn't, and therefore your ability to pivot quickly. So one thing that we encourage everyone to do is use a rigorous test and control methodology at an individual campaign or an individual tactic level. This can be as simple as a 10% holdout group, and it doesn't necessarily need to be done in a steady state. It can be done in the initial round to validate whether or not the approach is working. But we find that very often, unfortunately, in cases where this is not done, when it comes time to argue for expansion of a program, the individual stakeholder within an organization who's making an argument to expand that program may not have as much statistical or hard evidence as he or she would like to demonstrate how well it's working. So we really stress this, especially when trying new things. Test and control is very important. Another quick case study here in that vein, Eloquy, another brand that we work with. They wanted to identify who their future high value VIPs might be. So used Custora to predict which ones might be long before they hit their VIP purchase threshold. As is the case with a lot of businesses, before working with Custora, the way VIPs were identified at Eloquy was to have hit a certain spend threshold. Now that that's predictive, it doesn't necessarily need to be historical spend. Anyway, they use this to increase purchase frequency among this crew or among this subsegment by providing early access to special stuff, designer collections and sales. And thanks to the test and control that they had set up, it was evident very quickly that this VIP program generated a substantial increase in revenue. And from there, it was very easy to get buy-in to institutionalize it and make it a regular thing. Whether it's Custora or something else, we think it's very, very important for you to have automated and passive sources of information about how you're doing against your goal. The example you see on screen are Custora generated emails that show, in this case, how you're doing against a particular goal. Are you pacing on track or off track? And then on the right, you see a double click into some segmentation that shows you where you're overperforming and where you're underperforming. We find that it makes a huge difference to get an email like this even once a week, especially to senior leadership who are concerned with how the program is going, to keep people passively informed of what's going on and to include as much information as possible in the body of the email so that you can draw some conclusions without having to log in anywhere or really do anything else. And again, whether it's Custora or something else, having some technology to do this for you, we think is actually quite key. Overall, we hope that what that would ladder up into is a sense of whether or not your overall initiative, whatever it might be, in this case, VIP cultivation, is on track or not on track. Of course, the example you see on screen is a screenshot from the Custora app saying not on track, because in this case, we're pacing behind where we need to be in order to be on track. But the idea is that if you saw this, you would double click, you would understand where the weakness is, where the softness is, you would change tactics, you would pivot, and this same view 6 months later would be green and on track instead of red and not on track. One final point, this ability to benchmark your business performance against your most relevant competitors is very important to setting practical goals that still stretch your teams. So we've created a free benchmarking diagnostic tool that you may not have seen because it's brand new. It's based on anonymized data from over 100 retailers, and it's free and immediately available at our website. So I would invite you to be among the first to use this new tool, which just launched. It can be found at custora.com/pulse. So once again, feel free to email me. My email is ben.grant@custora.com. Set up a one-on-one discussion around some of these practices and what we could do to help you improve your VIP cultivation efforts. We are pretty much at time, but I'm going to quickly address a few questions that came in during the webinar, and for those I don't get to, I will follow up via email and we can talk more if you'd like. So one question that I see here is, what strategies would you suggest for targeting lower value customers to cultivate them into higher tier customers? That's an awesome question. We talk a lot about converting lower value customers into VIPs. The first thing I would say is lower your level of investment in the bottom 50% of your customer base in terms of how much you're investing in communicating with them, cultivating them, because they make up a pretty small slice of your revenue. The place to focus in cultivation might be between the 75th and the 95th percentile. If you can get those folks who are sort of borderline VIP to start mimicking VIP behaviors a bit more, then they're going to actually provide the same value as VIPs. For example, if one thing that you observe leads to future VIP behavior is a high UPT, people who have 7 or more items in their cart at their first purchase, for example, or in their second purchase, you could put in place incentives, marketing programs to make that happen more frequently across the group of people you want to behave more like VIPs. And that high UPT in this example tips them over the threshold into higher frequency future purchase behavior. Another question here, another great one. How would you approach the problem of finding an outsized portion of top decile customers buy only discounted products while we're trying to reduce our frequency of discounts? Love this one. So it may not go without saying that your VIP customers may be discount seekers or they may be full price customers. There's really no rule of thumb there. We have some customers, we have some clients here at Custora whose VIP customer base is entirely discount seekers. And these folks are purchasing frequently enough to make up for the discount that they're getting. And they still end up being the most valuable customers. We have other clients whose VIP customers are transacting at pretty much 100% of MSRP every time, and that's what makes them high value. So if you're in the situation of the person who is asking this question, one thing to keep in mind is you can't go cold turkey on them. It's not going to be something you can do overnight. What you can do is you can mask discounts from the VIPs who don't need them to convert. So from the top 5% of your customers, there's going to be some number who are full price shoppers or just discount opportunists and not seekers, and that they don't need a discount to convert. Do what you can to not expose that population to promotions. If you can control that via as many channels as possible. Email is usually the easiest. Stop sending them discount emails. On-site personalization is generally technically a little bit trickier, but if you can stop exposing site-wide promotions to that population, that would be a really good thing as well. As for the rest, the ones you can't go cold turkey on, what we generally recommend is testing into very gradual change to reduce promotions. So you can do that by scaling back the magnitude of the promotion. For example, if you're talking about a 35% off clearance sale or site-wide sale, test into making that 30% and see if the margin you're gaining back makes up for the lower volume of orders. You could also deal with frequency. For example, if you have a major sale event, promo event that's currently taking place every 4 times a year or so, you could scale that back to 3 times a year, make it slightly less frequent, and again, see the impact that has around the margins. One more question, and then the rest I will follow up by email. I like this one. How does the merch optimization described here differ from what merchandising departments are already doing? Well, at a really simple level, in our experience, merchandising teams are looking at what they bought, seeing how much of it they sold, and making future buying decisions based on that. And that's an oversimplification. There are other inputs, of course, like trends and what's happening next season and so on and so forth. But I would say at a high level, the implication of this talk on the merchandising function is that the merchandising team could benefit and does benefit, in our view, from actually giving a super amount of attention to this top 5% audience and making and letting them influence their buying decisions and their design decisions much more than any group. So that would incorporate things like price point preference, right? Deciding that most of next year's assortment is going to be at the price point preference of VIPs. It could, of course, get down into the category level, right? If we're talking about pants as a category indexing super high with VIPs, then that should be a merchandising discussion. And of course, the style and fit of the pants, and even going down so far into detail as to say the color. You know, there's the color black indexes very highly with our VIP audience, and that should influence the next year's buying decisions even more than if the whole bottom 50% of your customer base made clear such a preference. So it's just about that focus on what's going to work for the top 5%. So we are out of time. Thank you very much for listening this far. For those of you who sent in questions I didn't get to, thank you. I will follow up. And for those of you who haven't sent any yet, please feel free to do so. My email is ben.grant@custora.com. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and have a great day.